A guy with purple hair asks Rosa if she thinks the weather is just fine and it's going to be a beautiful day. He suggests the girl to look at the cute birds. The girl stands with a blindfold on and asks if her brother should untie it so she can see all this beauty. The boy says that he almost forgot, and the protagonist is already scolding him in his thoughts. The young boy says that it's a surprise party after all, so he can't help it. And his sister should be prepared to be surprised, since everything has been prepared for her. The guy helps the young lady to take off the blindfold, and she sees a table with food. The brother asks if it's cool. But the protagonist is not delighted. She sees that on the table there are only dishes with carrots and other greens. The young man directly glows with joy and claims that today they are feasting because Birdie brought all these precious ingredients from their vegetable garden. The maid says she couldn't help it, since today is such a special day. Rose looks at the cutlery and realizes that it is made of wood. The maid comes to the table and says that the main course has arrived. The girl thinks that the main course must surely be different and waits in anticipation. Her brother says with a smile on his face that it is the main course, prepared especially for Rosie. And when the maid lifts the lid, the young lady sees baked chicken on lettuce leaves. The guy claps and says, "That's chicken, top notch." The butler tells his master that it is against etiquette to clap at the table. The main character claps too, but with a kind of desperation because she has to at least react somehow. After all, the guy is the owner of this house. The young man says that he, as the eldest in the family, is very pleased that the girl liked it so much, and to please Rose, he planned this surprise party in advance, a whole month in advance. The main character, however, remembers that someone said that life is a comedy if you look at it from afar, and a tragedy if you look at it up close. The young lady tastes the baked chicken and realizes it's not even salty. Rose looks at her brother. She realizes that someone can safely say they envy the luxurious life of aristocrats. The young man turns to his sister and smiles, and she thinks that among most of the nobility, born with a golden rouge in their mouths, there is a very row to be found bearing a title that can't even be sold. She is poor as a church mouse, the daughter of a duke. Somehow, against all odds, the girl belongs to a very poor family that owns nothing but a house. She is reborn as the youngest daughter in the Carneff family. The week before, the young lady was walking around the city. She was looking at the advertisements there. The girl thought that these people are the real aristocracy of the 21st century. She even envied them because at least they are not unhappy because of poverty. Aristocrats are such as many in the novel Shards of Feelings, which the young lady holds in her hands. The protagonist thinks that she would like to leave this life, where you have to pay debts for studies and live without a penny in her pocket. She also wants, like the aristocrats, a rich, elegant life. But the girl doesn't have time to say anything before she is hit by a car, and then she finds herself in a completely different place. She looks up into the sky and sees 2 moons. The young lady wonders if these moons are Asuna and Zen. Just by looking up at the sky, she immediately realized what kind of place this is. A world where there are 2 moons in the sky, Asuna and Zen. It could only be the world inside the novel Shards of Sentience. The protagonist finally realizes that she is now inside the novel and nearly rolls on the floor. A maid runs up to her and asks if Mistress Rose is all right. When the girl hears this, she looks at her lavender hair. She immediately jumps up from her seat and runs to the mirror. When the protagonist looks at her reflection, she realizes that it is indeed Roselia Carneff. She wonders what has become of her precious bank cards. Vitya is not all still on Earth, and today is the day she is due her paycheck. The girl shouts about it, and the maid is surprised at her mistress's behavior. In the morning, the young lady wakes up and realizes that it was not a dream. The protagonist asks herself why, of all people, she had to become exactly Roselia Carneff. Pale skin, emphasizing lavender hair and eyes green like gems. This is a symbol of the elves because the first Duchess of Carneff was elven. In this world, a duchy was granted to the great hero and his beloved, an elven woman who played a great role during the founding of the Eredom Empire by Emperor Asher. In the picturesque lands of Denbridge is the only one in the entire empire built by the dwarves after the beautiful manor of Carneth. Thanks to the incredible beauty and outstanding strength of the elves, the family lived in wealth, and it lasted as long as Roselia Carneth's parents were alive. And then their daughter became the poorest lady in the empire. This is how the events in the novel Shards of Feelings unfold. The current ruler of the Eredom Empire, Frick Escher, was greedy for territories. In order to take as wives princesses who had land to inherit other empires, he passed an absurd edict stating that an emperor could have multiple wives. Blinded by his desire to expand his territories, he took women by any means available, but he did not know that one of his wives was a witch who wielded blades of hate. One night, she caused the emperor and empress to come to a shock. The woman claimed that His Highness was cruelty itself. He and his ancestors always did as they pleased. The brunette said that she had enough of these disgusting deeds after all. What's the big deal about a piece of land? But because of his greed, her fiancé died. The emperor tries to talk Sabrina out of her bad actions, but she says that she is by nature a merciful witch and will give His Highness a chance to repent. She waves her wand and points it at the emperor's pregnant wife. The witch says let their child learn love, compassion, and become a good person before his cruelty consumes His Highness. So the witch Sabrina cast a curse on the empress's unborn child, and then, without explaining what kind of curse she had cast, used her blade to plunge herself into eternal sleep. But despite the curse, the empress and her child were quite healthy. The baby was very beautiful, but he never once cried during the whole time. He showed no emotion at all, and the curse had destroyed part of the baby's soul. And this cursed child is the crown prince, Enoch Escher. Unable to feel emotions, the main character of this novel, and in the course of the plot to solve the issue of marriage, the prince just at this time must return to the capital. In addition, the prince's fiancée is this body, that is Roselia Carnaeff. The lack of emotion has caused condemnation from the Vatican, resulting in a loss of public support, causing Empress Caroline, who is concerned about the prince's fate, to make a very simple and clever choice. She decides to take advantage of the Duke of Carneth's plight and create a high-profile romantic scandal. The Empress bribes Roselia with money, and the poverty-weary Rose happily agrees to the marriage, preparing to be used at will. But there was a problem. The man known as the Demon Prince turned out to be very handsome, and Roselia fell in love like an idiot. But unfortunately, the protagonist of this novel is not Roselia at all, but Serena. Watched by the lovers Serena and the prince, Roselia retreated. Becoming neither a villain nor a secondary heroine, the young lady was used and then, according to the plot, forgotten altogether. But it is impossible to say in advance whether Roselia will suffer the same fate in the future. And even after being used, she got nothing. It's just outrageous. The protagonist can't believe how she can become a prince's bride and be killed for love, because love won't feed. But she did not imagine that, having become a crown princess, will be able to get everything she was deprived of in her past life, including money. The young lady realizes that, as it happens, when she gets out of this cursed poverty, she will need to take security measures as soon as possible. The maid enters the room and asks if her mistress is awake. She also informs her that the master has already returned and she needs to hurry to set the table. The protagonist looks out the window and sees a guy with purple hair. When he notices her, he starts smiling and waving. The young man asks how Rose is feeling. The young lady realizes that this waving hands beautiful young man is a minor character in the novel Shards of Feelings and the head of the family Carneth, Reyes Carneth, the man who will now become the girl's older brother. The guy with a smile on his face takes his little sister by the hands, and the latter is not very happy. She thinks that she should have locked the door. The boy asks if Rose is okay. After that, he states what a relief it is, because he was so scared when the girl got sick and is glad that everything is already fine. The protagonist realizes that before she woke up in this world, Rose had been unconscious for over a week because of the fever. Reyes, on the other hand, holds out a gift to her little sister. The young lady doesn't understand anything at first. And the young man congratulates her on her 20th birthday and offers to quickly open the gift and see what's in there. The protagonist thinks that although it is for Roselia's birthday, it is still a gift, so she is impatient. The girl wonders, even though the family is bankrupt, whether a birthday present could be special, such as a gem or a bundle of money. But when the young lady opens the box, who sees a bear cub in there, she realizes that it can neither be eaten nor worn, so it is a completely useless and teddy bear. The girl wants money or something shiny and small. Reyes asks if his little sister likes the gift. Rose says how adorable it is, but her face says otherwise. The boy claims he knew she would like it, and the protagonist thinks he was very wrong. The young man asks Rose what they will do and whether they will go to the dwarf forest. One of the servants states that not much time has passed since Mistress Roselia recovered, and she has not yet fully recovered. Then Reyes offers to read a book to his little sister in the parlor, since he hasn't done that in a long time. Something tells the protagonist that if she says no now, who will only get worse. When they get to the library, the protagonist reflects that she wondered if this family had anything to sell, but as expected, they have nothing but the house. A young boy asks what his little sister wants to read today about a brave warrior or a witch. Rose remembers that Reyes Carnef has a delicate, even fragile personality. As a child, he was cheated by his relatives, and so he lost the family fortune. Tired of poverty, all the hired laborers scattered. In this huge estate remained only little Reyes, Rose, Butler Bart, and maid Bertie. But Reyes, as the second male character, had one special ability. Reyes is an elementalist, even more rare in this world than mages. But he works as a mercenary, hiding the fact that he is an elementalist and the fact that he is the Duke of Carnaef. Fearing that his family would get involved in politics, he carefully hid his power, so worried fans were quite a few because of his touching story. Now the guy asks Rose if he should read both then. The protagonist feels as if she has become a preschooler and says she can the one that is shorter. The young man says he will read about the witch then. The young lady, however, thinks about it. Because of the witch, a part of the prince's soul was destroyed. She wonders how it feels to be unable to feel emotions. The girl asks her brother what kind of person he thinks His Majesty the Prince is. The protagonist wants to find out how much she can get out of him. But her brother shatters all her dreams and says that the prince is very strong and scary. After all, the guy has been defeating all those terrifying monsters since he was 13 years old. Reyes says it's not unreasonable for the Vatican to be so controlling of His Highness, because if there's anyone as strong, it's a priest swinging a mace. Rose realizes that taking him will not be easy. Her older brother wonders why she asks, but the young lady claims she was just curious. Neither Reyes nor she, unfortunately, are protagonists in this world, and if they want to survive there, an airbag is needed. The girl, of course, knew Enoch Escher was a tough nut to crack, but he turns out to be even more frightening. Rose wonders how she can get her hands on the prince's money if something happens and her life is on the line. Reyes, on the other hand, suggests that her sister start reading the book. The protagonist doubts that someone here is using her head correctly. At this time, a butler and a maid enter the room. They tell their master that they have brought snacks. Rose is overjoyed, for her blood sugar level has just dropped. The girl realizes that her brother is a duke after all, and should at least enjoy the tea. But all she sees is a carrot. The young man says that their carrots are sweeter than any sugar, and the butler claims that this dessert is great for reading. The young lady, on the other hand, looks around in her glass and realizes that it's just plain water. Reyes suggests that her sister try the treat because it's her birthday, so Bertie must have chosen the best ones. The protagonist realizes that they have prepared all this for her. When she takes a bite of the carrot, she realizes that it really is sweeter than it looks. The boy says that the water from the Denbridge well is especially good that day, too. The maid smiles, but suddenly grabs her back. Reyes notices this and tells Bertie to rest. The maid, however, states with a smile that it is her job and she is always happy to work for the Duke. The protagonist looks at all this. She thinks that when you are poor, having poor health is the worst. The girl doesn't remember her earthly name, still remembers how poor she was. She had no place there, no family to lean on. Even on days when she was sick, there was no money to go to the hospital, so the girl just held on until she got better. Back then, she was completely alone. But now it's not like that. The young lady puts her hands on the maid's shoulders and tells her to go rest quickly because there is enough work for today. The maid tries to object, but her older brother says that Rose is right and they don't mind. The young lady asks if she hears and tells the maid to go rest quickly because it's an order. The woman is a little surprised, but she is happy. The girl, however, thinks that even though in the novel they are Roselia's inner circle, but now they are people who genuinely care for her. Bertie alone has served this utterly ruined family faithfully for a long time, and there is no way she can stay healthy. They are definitely experiencing hardship, like when the protagonist didn't have the money to go to the hospital. Rose thinks it's no surprise that she can't stay on the sidelines, and she needs to get out of this poverty. She has only one way, the key element that makes Serena the main character, and that is the Crown Prince's soul shard. When the prince is near this shard, he can feel again. The girl realizes that she must tap into the prince's emotions. Her older brother asks what happened. The protagonist claims that she was just thinking about the best thing to do with the airbag. The Empress at this time orders a maid to send a letter to Duke Karnef. The maid says it will be done, and Her Highness states that it is a very important letter and no mistake can be made in sending it. When Reyes arrives at the Imperial Palace, he asks if he has been called to propose an engagement between Rose and His Highness the Prince. The blonde claims that she knows that the Duke's family has a lot of debts that are causing them to fall on hard times. The woman promises that if everything goes as planned, she will pay off all the guy's debts, and then he will be able to fulfill most of his desires. The Empress tells him to know that this offer is the only chance for the revival of the Duchy of Karnef. The protagonist is sitting in the garden at this time. She wonders if Reyes the Empress is now discussing their engagement. She is even sorry that the Empress called him so suddenly, because the guy wanted to celebrate his little sister's birthday. But the hasty departure of Reyes to Birmingham at the invitation of the Empress means soon approaching the beginning of the plot of the original story. The young lady decides to go into business and get some money, though it's a little early, but she needs to start looking now, because this is her money source, which will save the girl from this cursed poverty. In the novel, while walking along the coast of Rockingham, Serena accidentally finds a blue bead, and then she is able to save the Emperor when his ship capsizes in a storm and he falls into the sea. After being recognized for her deed, Serena was given a great reward and a title. She is invited to spend a week at court, where after meeting the Crown Prince, the two's romance begins in earnest. So if Rose finds this fragment faster, and the protagonist, the awards will fall into her hands. But first, it is necessary to understand how she can get to Rockingham. Therefore, the young lady informs the butler that she is going to Birmingham. First, she decides to go to a place near Denbridge, to where Baron Harris lives, and from there thinking to find a way to get to Rockingham. The protagonist thinks this is great, and decides to try to make money selling emotions to His Highness. Bart stops his mistress. He tells her to be careful and wishes her a good journey. Rose is touched by this. She smiles and says she will and says goodbye to the butler. But when she comes to Birmingham, I look so happy. After all, she has to pay duty on a bag of carrots. The girl claims they are her supplies, and the knights can't contain their laughter and ask if she took it all to eat. They point their spears at her and claim that the girl looks suspicious and ask what she's going to do with all those carrots. The protagonist claims it's just carrots, but the knights won't even listen. Suddenly, another guy approaches them from behind and asks what's going on. One of the knights claims that they are doing a background check on a suspicious person. The young lady realizes that it is Baron Millick Harris. One of the knights states that it may be an unregistered witch. The protagonist realizes there is nothing to be done and removes her hood. The boys see that it is Lady Karnef. The Baron sighs and asks the lady to be magnanimous and forgive the rudeness of his men, for they are quite new, so they are still quite inept. He asks how it is that my lady came there alone. Rose claims to be looking for a way to get to Rockingham, but she has nothing, except a carrot. The young man states that unfortunately he doesn't have any money either. Rose, on the other hand, asks if there is no way out. She really wants to go, and even a wagon would suit her. The brunette states that if by wagon, he can track one down. The young lady thanks the Baron and claims that she will definitely repay him, but he says she shouldn't. After that, they approach a merchant whose name is Kyle. The guy claims he'll be glad to help. He says it's spacious inside, so my lady can rest. The girl gives the Baron a carrot and hops into the wagon. Rose promises that she will be sure to repay Milik. 3 days pass while she rides in the merchant's wagon. The merchant finally informs her that they have arrived at the place the lady spoke of and points to the house of the Ene's family. The protagonist hands the lad a carrot and says that he will owe him one too. The guy claims that he hasn't done anything after all. But the young lady doesn't even listen to him and says that she will pay him back. The young man thanks Rose and wonders where the girl is in such a hurry. The protagonist sneaks through the bushes because at the edge of the beach, there is a place where the trees thicken into the semblance of a forest. If you go straight along this path, you can see the white sandy shore and emerald sea. This is exactly the place where Siren found the soul shard. But there's a reason that makes Rose hesitate. This beach is the private property of Jane Anus, the main character's childhood best friends. Therefore, Serena could safely walk on this beach without worrying about being discovered. Rosa. Need to quickly find the shard before she is noticed. The girl begins to dig in the sand because by all means, she must find the soul shard faster than Siren. But from behind, the knights come up to the protagonist and shout that it is a trespasser. The girl is shocked. She doesn't understand why she was captured because Serena has never been arrested. When they arrive at the tent, the knight asks if she says that the reason the girl entered the private territory of the Ernest family is because she needs to find something. The protagonist claims that it is and offers the guy a carrot, which he accepts and thanks the young lady. Someone enters the tent. It is Serena's longtime childhood friend, Lady Jane Ernest. Rose realizes that this girl is the mistress of these lands. She greets her, and she asks her to let her serve the young lady first. Jane tells the maids to set the table, and a couple of minutes later, the protagonist sees a whole table covered with appetizers. The girl says that she hopes that she has guessed everything, and the young lady will like everything. She then says that she has been informed that the young lady has been sneaking onto the Ernest family's beach. She heard that the girl is looking for something and claims that if she wanted to, she could invite Rose to that beach as many times as she needed. The protagonist then asks if she can go there for a while. The girl states that it is not difficult for her to open the beach, but it will be difficult until tomorrow because there are guests who are going to visit it. The young lady realizes that these guests must have the Emperor with his lover. Rose is definitely caught in the moment when Siren must find the soul fragment. The young lady realizes that she must find it faster than the protagonist, and so the girl asks if it will be all right if she is not caught, and Jane says that it will be difficult. Then Rose decides to give up, because there is nothing to be done and she can't force the girl sitting across from her. The main character claims that the Ernest family cook is an excellent cook. Jane says she can ask him to cook some more if the lady wants. The protagonist folds her arms and states that Lady Ernest is straight up an angel. The girl pleads with Asuna and Zen to let her work less and get more in her life. Suddenly, a servant announces that a guest has arrived at the manor. Rose is surprised as she looks at the door. She realized at first sight from that carelessly gathered red hair, bright amber eyes that this is the main character of this novel, Siren. The young lady looks at Rose and asks if she is the fairy mistress, but the purple-haired girl claims she is human. Serena apologizes and says she's never seen anyone so beautiful. The protagonist claims that there is a first time for everything, and in her mind she thanks her elven ancestors. She doesn't have time for that. If she keeps dragging on, the stone will go straight to Siren. So the young lady says she has to go, and Serena asks if the girl is going to the beach, and she replies that she lost something there. The lady with red hair says she heard that the beach is closed until the next day and asks how come the girl lost something there. The protagonist states that it just so happened and that thing is very important to her, so she owes it to her to find it. Then Serena says she knows a way to sneak in there secretly and offers to go together, since she was going to go there in the morning anyway. Rose realizes that this is it, because this is how the girl will find the soul fragment. So the young lady decides not to hesitate and says that in fact, when she was walking on the beach, she dropped a small blue pebble. She asks if the girl doesn't mind looking for it together. Serena says she'd be happy to help. The next day, the lady with red hair comes to the main character and suggests that she should get up soon, because now they have to leave. When the girls go out to sea, the young lady wonders why the knights were so strict with her, because now they are not even there. She ponders whether it is because the girl has red hair. The protagonist tells Serena not to pick up the pebble when she finds it, but to call out to her, for it must not be touched in any way. The red-haired lady claims she will. Rose, however, realizes that it is dangerous to let the protagonist of the novel touch the stone, just in case, because suddenly the stone might react to Serena. The young lady remembers that in the story today is the day when the Emperor's boat capsized and he was rescued from the water. The girl looks out to sea and realizes that the Emperor is apparently a fool, because it is reckless to go out to sea on such a day. Suddenly, the protagonist notices a blue pebble. She picks it up from the sand and realizes that it is smaller than she imagined. The girl puts the shard of soul in her bag and almost cries with joy, because now she will follow the road of money. The lady with the red hair asks if it is the stone the girl lost, and Rose asserts that it is. Serena says with a genuine smile on her face that she is very glad it is. Suddenly, she notices that something is going on in the sea. The protagonist sees that it is the Emperor's boat. The lady with the red hair asks how the anime could go out to sea on a small boat on a day like this, because a little more and the boat will capsize. The main character at this time pulls a carrot out of her bag and starts chewing on it. Serena cries out what to do, because the boat has capsized. The protagonist asks what the girl is doing, because His Majesty is drowning there and he needs to be saved. Serena jumps into the sea. A little while later, the knights come running, but the lady with red hair is already taking the Emperor out of the water, and the protagonist is helping the Empress. Rose thinks there's a little more to help and claims that His Highness's boat has capsized because of the weather. But the girl with red hair saves the Emperor. The knights are shocked and everything is clear to them now. Later in the Emperor's villa, His Highness claims that it was a truly heroic act, because the young lady threw herself into the sea to save a man. Serena says she is very grateful to His Majesty. The blonde man says that saving this man is tantamount to saving the country, and for this, he grants the red-haired lady the Viscountcy of Plan and wants to invite them to the palace. The protagonist realizes that she will finally meet the prince. His Highness turns to her and claims that he is seeing Lady Carnef for the first time and has heard that she has recently turned 20. The young lady asserts that this is correct, and the Emperor claims that she is already a proper lady, so he will give her a proper gift when she arrives in the capital. Rose thinks it would be better if he gave her money. When they head to the carriage, the protagonist realizes that imperial transportation is on a whole other level, because right on the way, she can enjoy such delicious treats. Serena turns to the young lady and asks if she's used to it. Getting the title, becoming Siren Plan, it all seems unreal to her, and yet she just, following Rose's words, pulled a man out of the sea. The protagonist realizes that because of her, after all, the meaning of the novel has changed. In the original, Serena was supposed to throw herself selflessly into the sea, but now it's as if Rose has pushed her in the back. The young lady states that this seems to be Serena's fate and asks what they are worried about. The girl holds out a plate of cookies and states that they are, after all, on their way to receive an award now, and they need to think about how they can best spend their time in such a situation. The red-haired lady agrees with her, and with a smile on her face states that her ladyship is right. The coachman informs her that they will soon arrive at their destination. The protagonist looks out the window and sees Birmingham. The servants welcome the girls into the luxurious palace. The butler states that since the young ladies saved His Majesty's life, he has touched to escort them to one of the royal family's spare rooms. While they are in the palace, they will be provided with clothes ordered in famous boutiques in the capital. The protagonist tries to find the crown prince, but does not see him anywhere. The butler, however, says that the girls will also be paid money, which will be quite enough to maintain their dignity. Rose asks again in shock about maintaining their dignity, and the man says that is correct, and of course it is in addition to the reward they will receive. The young lady folds her hands in a lock and states that as vast as seas and rivers, the favor of His Imperial Majesty, Lord of all and everything, is exceptionally great. The man says that Viscountess Plan can be seated in the room of roses and that a room of shining stars has been prepared for Lady Karnaeff. The girl begins to look at the room. She thinks that because of the many windows, it is beautiful, but the heating bills are probably fabulous, but the imperial family needs to know about it. A maid comes up to the young lady and says her name is Rachel Claudine. In accordance with the rules of the palace, they will provide everything she needs and start with her appearance first. But before doing so, she decides to retrieve a dirty bag from Rose. The protagonist snatches it back and claims that it is an important item, and in her mind adds that a fragment of her soul is still in it. The maid asks if the bag is so important to the young lady, but she claims she has nowhere else to put her personal belongings. The woman waves to the maids, and they bring a table with various bags. After Rose chooses one of them, the woman sighs. She states that with the return of His Highness the Crown Prince, many eyes are on the imperial family, so the girl must be careful about her appearance. After that, the maids begin to dress up the young lady. One of them states that today the young lady will be a debutante and asks if she has a chaperone. A chaperone is a companion, usually an elderly lady accompanying a young girl, attacked. But the protagonist doesn't know what it is and thinks it's some kind of shampoo. After the maids dress up Rose, they realize with admiration what the elven blood means and how extraordinary it looks. And the violet hair looks great with the silver ribbon. The young lady realizes that of course this face is special. A pair of maids enter the room and claim they have come to deliver gifts from His Highness. The protagonist ponders whether they contain that money for maintaining dignity, and she wonders how much it is. After all, this is the emperor, and he couldn't scrimp on money for a snack. The maid opens the box, and Rose sees a piece of jewelry in it. The maids say that this hair jewelry is now very popular among aristocratic people. The young lady wonders what kind of junk it is for tourists. The girl puts it to her head and says that she really liked it because it seems that the master with his artificial hands attached one by one these exquisite flowers. So it seems as if a live flower attached to the hair. She thinks that such praise will be enough and decides to put the hairpin in place. But the jewelry falls and breaks into a bunch of small pieces. The maids are a bit startled by this, and the protagonist wonders if this is an absolute disaster. As the maids pick up the pieces, one of them says that His Majesty's gift has completely shattered into pieces, and unfortunately, it can't be worn now. The young lady realizes she screwed up. She looks at the flowers and sees that they are intact. Rose turns to the maids. The same maids look questioningly at their lady. The lady with lavender hair asks if they could put the pieces back together after the girl unbraided her hair. The maids ask what her blondes are going to do with it, and she tells them to just watch. The young lady tells them to just watch, and the maids watch the process admiringly. Rose braids a braid with flowers in it and asks if the girls have ever heard of naturalism. They admiringly say it's something cool. The lady with the lavender hair thinks it's so and so rolled and sighs in relief. Another maid enters the room and asks if the girl is done. She states that she would like to show the imperial palace and asks if the young lady would mind. Siren comes up behind them and states that she would like to go with them as well. The three of them then go for a walk. The main character sees that everything there is so majestic. The red-haired lady notices that the imperial palace is crowded, and the woman accompanying them says that it's the social season, although it's usually crowded, but the flow of people doesn't stop at this time. Rose notices that there are only blondes around and doesn't understand how she will find the crown prince among them. Several girls are gossiping. One of them claims that she has heard that this banquet is organized to find a potential bride for His Highness. The protagonist is shocked by this. She wonders if the engagement story unofficially ended with her and realizes that the plot has changed again. According to the original story, before Serena arrived in the capital, the decision on their engagement to the prince had already been officially made, but Rose has recently traveled to Rockingham and realizes that she made a mistake. In addition, the protagonist ponders what will happen if the crown prince shows up when she and Serena are in a place, because the soul shard is now in her possession, not the lady with the red hair. There's an episode in the original where, upon learning of the true nature of the stone, Rose kidnaps it. The girl goes with the jewelry to the crown prince. She believed that if she had the stone, that prince would love her. However, the prince only felt displeased with such an act of Roselia. In the end, Roselia, crushed and regretting her act, finding herself in disfavor with the prince, returns the soul shard to Serena. Of course, be that as it may, the protagonist would rather face the prince alone, so she looks around and tries to find him. A lady with red hair approaches her from behind and asks if the young lady is looking for something. The young lady claims that she heard that His Highness the Prince has returned to the capital and she has never seen him, so she wanted to see if he was there. The maid claims that His Majesty's face has been on the front pages of the newspapers several times and asks if the lavender-haired lady has never seen him. The protagonist claims that she doesn't subscribe to the newspaper. The other two girls are shocked. The maid claims there is a portrait of His Highness hanging in the West Wing on the first floor of the dance hall. It's a public hall, but since no one visits it now, it's closed. The woman says that if Roselia wants to, that she will show her that portrait tomorrow. The girl sighs and thinks that maybe it's for the best. The next day at a boutique, the maid states that they need a little more time to prepare the dress for the exit. The protagonist sees that they keep bringing things in and out and asks if they will finish before lunch. A lady with green hair approaches from behind. She asks which lady is having dinner before the ball. The woman states that the debutante ball and the awards ceremony are held at the same time. She asks what young lady wouldn't be excited about such an event, so Rose definitely needs a special outfit. At this time, Serena enters the room. She apologizes and says that there are so many trees with unusual fruit that she glanced at them while she was walking around. The lady with green hair states that the beauty of the imperial palace is truly mesmerizing, then tells the girls to take off their clothes and change into petticoats. She claims that she owns the best boutique in the empire, so she will make the girls the most fashionable in the empire. Since they are being honored as the saviors of His Imperial Majesty, the young ladies need to keep themselves dignified. But since the reward ceremony will take place in just 3 days and time is limited, they have prepared quite modestly. The protagonist claims that a couple more of these modestly, and the coffin lid will slam shut. The boutique owner asks if the girls said anything. The lavender-haired lady claims she did, afraid she can't contain her admiration for the lady's masterful organizational skills. The woman chuckles and claims that she will dress the girls more chicly than anyone else in the empire, so they need not worry. The young lady also claims that she would definitely like to wear the hair jewelry that is in the box. But the lady with green hair claims that for such a lavish performance like this, such an immediately modest piece of jewelry would not be appropriate. The main character claims that it is very important for her, and her interlocutor says that important trinkets should also have their time and place, because no matter how you look at it, this jewelry does not fit at all. Rose realizes that no matter how hard you try, the woman will not make concessions. Then she looks at the table and sees wreaths of flowers. The girl puts the wreath on her head and adds some flowers to her dress, then asks if the boutique owner wants to add naturalism to the elf fashion. The woman is delighted by this, and Serena says that the girl really is like a fairy. Head games and does not claim she is human. The boutique owner starts praising the idea in another language already, and the protagonist realizes it worked. The woman says she thinks she will be good partners in the near future, and the protagonist agrees. She can already smell the money. Rose then shows Madame Antoine the soul shard and asks if the woman can't find a bracelet in which such a bead can be inserted. The lady with green hair says that it is possible, and in 2 days the bracelet will be ready. The young lady rejoices and states that she wants the most durable one. After that, the girl rejoices that she will finally be able to eat. But all she sees on the table is bread and tea. The lady with violet hair wonders if that's all. She was expecting at least some meat, because if it goes on like this, she'll collapse from hunger fainting. So the protagonist asks when they will bring something with meat. The maid tells her ladyship that the crush is a high-born elf and asks what she means, for meat is a product that should definitely be avoided. The girl didn't seem to know that, so she said so, but meat doesn't sink fat, and didn't the Vatican ask to abstain from meat and alcohol? Appetite has been recognized as a sin that causes them to gain weight and harm their health. Rose begins to eat the bread and says that she understands, but in her mind she is cursing this Vatican. She then walks out into the hallway with the woman. The same woman states that she is glad the young lady liked the food because it makes their work meaningful. She also says that she will send a maid tomorrow, that you will show her ladyship the palace after breakfast, and by that time the young lady should be prepared. The protagonist doesn't let the maid finish and asks if she can go look around. The woman asks if she wants to do that right now. Rose can't anymore, though. She needs to sneak out and get something to eat, so she tells us she wants to do it right now. The maid says she'll escort the young lady out then, but the girl thanks her and refuses, saying she'll have a quick look around on her own. The woman says that it is not customary for a guest to walk around the imperial palace on their own. Serena approaches them and suggests that they go together. She would like to see Her Highness Princess Iela's atelier in the East Wing. The protagonist realizes that going with Serena is not an option either. She states with a smile on her face that she shouldn't, as she just wanted to explore the neighborhood a bit, and elves have always liked to walk alone. The girl says she'll be back soon, so they shouldn't worry. The woman tells the young lady not to go too far away and to be careful with strangers. When the protagonist goes to the street, she thinks she can eat as many meat sandwiches as she wants with the money she was given. She wonders how long it will take to walk to the sidewalk cafe. On the street, she sees a crowd of people and doesn't understand why there are so many of them. But when she sees a camera and people recording something, she realizes that they are journalists. The girl immediately turns around, and a young man suggests his colleague to look at that girl in the robe. It's the first time he's seen someone walking around the palace like that. The guy claims that the young lady looks very unusual and could be a foreign visitor. Another reporter suggests that they might get an exclusive. After that, one young man approaches the protagonist and claims that he is Johnson, a senior reporter of the Grace magazine editorial office. He also asks if the girl could say a few words, but the protagonist just pulls up her hood to cover her face even more. But she is already being chased by a whole herd of journalists. They ask what is the reason for Togo, so the young lady leaves the palace in a hurry and why she is wearing a robe. But Rose starts to run away. The journalists in shock realize that the girl is avoiding them, and it is very suspicious. But they, with their caustic smiles, already feel exclusive. They start chasing the lady, and the lady runs so that her hood flies off. The journalists are shocked, because this is the very lady about whom rumors are circulating. One journalist asks the young lady to wait for a minute, because she will ask only a few questions. Rose runs away even faster, because if she is caught there, it will definitely turn out to be a shameful collapse for her. But the girl runs almost to a dead end. Her gaze clings to one building, and the protagonist does not hesitate to head there. Journalists head after her, but Rose manages to hide. After people leave, the young lady tries to understand where she is, but when she sees the walls in precious stones, she realizes that she is in the West Wing, because where else can you see such luxury? Her eyes are caught by a painting hanging on the wall, and the young lady realizes that it is a portrait of the prince. But she is surprised that the gems are right in the painting. The girl wonders all they are worth. She approaches the portrait and touches one of them, thinking about whether they are real. The girl also thinks that if she sells just one, that she can eat as much meat as she wants without worrying. Suddenly, one of the gems flies out of the painting, followed by the others. The girl is terrified and shouts for them to stop falling. A lot of the painting has already emptied. The crown prince asks the girl who she is, and the protagonist realizes that she is finished. The young lady realizes it's Enoch Escher and thinks, isn't it against the rules to be prettier than her portrait? The The prince looks at the girl's hand and states that she is caught fed up with personal. Rose hides her hand and asks what His Highness is talking about. The guy, on the other hand, asks, wasn't the girl just about to rip off the jewelry and appropriate it for herself? The protagonist smiles strainedly and claims that she didn't tear anything off, but just touched it, and it suddenly fell out. The girl places the jewelry on a chair nearby. Enoch says that judging by the hair, it is Lady Carnef. He states that if the lady is from a poor family, he already knows the motive for the crime he just committed. The protagonist agrees that her family is poor, but asks if he doesn't think stating such a thing is a bit much. But the guy says that the young lady has a running look, confused breathing. She tries to justify herself and, among other things, the protagonist claims that he saw the lavender-haired lady tearing stones from the painting with her own hands. Rose now realizes what a man with no emotion looks like and asks in thought how he can say all this without changing his face at all. He seems to be looking at the protagonist as an object. The girl realizes that this is a problem because the situation is just perfect for a misunderstanding to arise. Her affairs can't go that badly before she fulfills her main task, but first she has to get out of this situation somehow. Therefore, the protagonist falls on her knees before His Highness. The same asks what the girl is doing. Rose claims that she seems to His Majesty in a bad mood, so she thought that if she did so to save herself, his anger will at least subside a little. But the guy claims that he doesn't even feel emotions, so he just can't be in a bad mood. The lavender-haired lady is very surprised by this, and the crown prince assumes that she doesn't seem to have heard that he can't feel emotions. But that's not what the protagonist is thinking about, because the guy's soul fragment is now right in Rose's bag, and it's just not possible for it to be dysfunctional, because in the novel he definitely felt dislike for Roselia when she had the fragment. She suggests that His Highness sit down and talk, for she thinks that since this is the first time this has happened, the guy doesn't realize it. When they sit down, the crown prince keeps looking at the girl sitting across from him, and the protagonist thinks that he felt something. The blonde says that he heard that the young lady was invited to the palace as a guest of honor for saving His Imperial Majesty's life, but that the guest of honor was caught stealing from the palace. Rose claims that nothing was stolen, and it cannot be considered stealing, for these stones fell out on their own, from which she was confused. But the prince only adds that Lady Carnef was quite willful in her behavior. The blonde now suggests listening to the one who was caught. The protagonist claims that later His Highness will regret that they did this to her, but the guy says that he does not understand what she is talking about. But this man does not even realize who Rose is, and in that little purse, she hid a fragment of his soul. The girl says that now His Highness may be a little confused because it's the first time, and no doubt it will be new to His Highness. She thinks he can't understand how he feels, which is why he's acting like this. But the crown prince only says that the girl is starting to talk some nonsense and it would be better to arrest her. The young lady asks Togo to wait and claims that His Highness is too impatient. She says that she is Lady Carnaef and asks if he thinks she is just saying that. She starts by suggesting that the fellow calm down and look inside himself because he must feel something, and therein lies the answer. Rose asks His Highness not to be frightened and claims to be an expert on emotions. She also promises that she will make sure His Highness can feel. The protagonist realizes that, of course, he must have been surprised. She says with a smile on her face that if the guy wants to, he can do it now. The crown prince says that it's clear to him that the girl is trying to make him feel something. The protagonist claims that this is true because she has elven blood flowing in her. It is such a possibility. And the guy claims it's the first time he's ever seen such a rogue in his life. Rose is shocked. Her thoughts are outraged at how a man who just wants to do business honestly can be called a swindler. She asks why His Highness is so distrustful of people, and even if he doesn't believe others, he should believe her. The girl asks if nothing has come off in his chest now, for he must feel something different from the usual. But the guy just sits there with a stony expression on his face and just keeps silent. The main character is just dumbfounded by this, but she can't let all her plans go to waste like this. Before she gets arrested or something, Rose decides that she needs to convince the blonde somehow, but she doesn't understand how. At this time, someone's voices are heard from behind the door. The crown prince turns around and asks what all the commotion is about, and the young lady claims that they really don't know what it is to give up. The girl then suggests that His Highness hide behind her because there are reporters coming. But when she wants to approach Enoch, she stumbles over her dress and falls. The last thing she sees before she falls is the prince's slightly surprised face. That's when the reporters burst into the room. They all nearly faint from having run so far and ask for a moment for an interview. But what they see shocks them. They all pull out their cameras and shriek that it's an exclusive. The guys ask why they are in the conservatory alone and how long they have known each other. One of the reporters asks what caused their relationship to develop. The protagonist realizes what she has done. Knights are already rushing into the room. One of them shrieks that press access to the West Wing is forbidden today, and it is an order from Her Imperial Majesty. The journalist shrieks that they've never been told that before, but the knights escort them outside. One of them approaches His Highness after all this and asks if he's all right. He claims that they've barred the press from entering, but don't expect the reporters of a daily newspaper to back down so meekly, and the prince had better leave the place. But anyway, it looks like the two of them have already been photographed. Enoch touches his forehead with his hand, and when the knight looks at Rosa, she only looks away. She tells His Highness that she hasn't eaten anything today. Then she turns around with a bright smile and says that it would be very absurd if a lady with His Majesty's life to pass out from hunger when there are so many reporters around. The knight felt ashamed for some reason, while the protagonist smiled throughout. After that, she sits at the table together with His Highness. The girl is eating meat and thinks it's just heavenly food. The crown prince, on the other hand, just dips the bread in the soup and is about to eat. The maids are very frightened, and Rose doesn't understand why they are looking back at Enoch so nervously. When she looks at his face, she thinks it's like he's eating some kind of poison. Since he has no emotions, it's not surprising since he just doesn't feel anything. The girl asks His Highness if he can taste the food. She suggests the guy eat, as he recently did, with that feeling. The protagonist asks what other feeling, and the young lady states that he should have felt it recently. She talks about emotions. The guy definitely felt something that time. The lavender-haired lady asks if his heart beat faster, his breath caught, his temperature rose, and his face turned red. Enoch says there was something similar. The protagonist thinks she's finally got it and claims that this is the emotion called excitement. But the prince breaks through her and claims that this emotion is called discontent. The feeling he experienced seemed to him wells with menace and judging. According to the girl, it must be discontent. Rose is shocked, and she is even somehow offended. Enoch asks if it's really an emotion, and the protagonist says that she is sure it is because she is Lady Carnef and her family has elven blood flowing in its veins. The fact that she suddenly found herself on Rockingham Beach and saved His Majesty, and the fact that she can make the prince feel emotions, all of this is no accident at all. His Highness claims to understand and asks if that means that the lady had some sort of revelation that made all of this happen. Rose states that it's something similar, and to him, it must be amazing. The guy claims that first she tried to steal the gems, and then suddenly she started cheating. Then she made an attempt on the crown prince's life, and now she continues to cheat him. The young lady can't take it anymore. She cries out how this accident turned into an assassination attempt. The knight shouts that Lady Carnef is disrespecting His Highness. Rose looks at him. The guy seems familiar to her. There was a similar character in the novel. Black hair, gray eyes. It's Leonard Rohner, but she somehow doesn't care about his words. The girl asks His Highness if the issue of emotion is not important to him. As his partner, the girl will be somewhat upset if he continues to think of her as a rogue, and displeasure is really the emotion he felt due to her special ability. But the crown prince says he's not sure about that, because how can he be sure that the feeling is the emotion? He's not sure about the young lady's ability either. Enoch asks if this means that the evil beast that caused such sensations is also an expert in emotions. The lavender-haired lady simply has no words. She looks at the piece of meat in her hands and realizes that if he still doesn't believe that, she has nothing left but to show him herself what real displeasure is. So Rose turns to the knight and asks him to take her to the kitchen. When they head there is a gloomy atmosphere around, and the knight asks if the lady will really be able to arouse His Highness's emotions. The guy asks what the crown prince thinks about it, and the guy replies that it's worth testing. He says that he believes that Lady Karnaeff is aware of how much worse her family's situation would be if she circled him now. When the protagonist looks into the kitchen, she hears the cook shrieking desperately that he is already tired. He asks what the hell he should do, because even when he creates the best dishes and puts his whole soul into them, he can't sleep well. A co-worker suggests he cheer up, because the cook is not alone in this, because she feels the same way. One of the maids enters the room and informs him that His Highness has arrived. The chef goes outside and crouches on the floor. He says that if His Highness didn't like the dishes, they will prepare others right away. Rose doesn't understand what's going on. After all, she just wanted to use the kitchen. The protagonist looks at the cook and claims that there has been some kind of mistake, as he only went there because Lady Karnaeff said she wanted to use the kitchen. The servant apologizes again. The young lady looks at the expression on Enoch's face. She may be mistaken, but the girl thinks she can sense the weariness in his voice. Such misunderstandings must happen to him often. The cook asks why her ladyship needs the kitchen, and she claims there is one treat she would like to offer His Highness, but the chef claims there is nothing in the kitchen for. The protagonist interrupts him and asks him not to worry, as she will take care of it herself. Then the cook claims that he will do his best to help her, but the young lady says she shouldn't, believes she would like to cook for His Highness herself, and the boys can rest a bit. Rose thinks, let everyone watch, for Enoch will soon find out what is truly unpleasant. The guy asks and what the young lady is going to treat him to. The same lady claims that His Highness has an impatient temper. The knight cries out that this is disrespect again, but the protagonist just ignores him and asks the prince if he's tried anything unusual. He says he's not sure, since all the food is similar. Surely the food at the Imperial Palace would be better, since the dishes they recently had in the greenhouse were delicacies among delicacies. Rose says that if he eats such food all the time, no wonder he doesn't understand the value of delicacies. Some food gives joy and pleasure, some even happiness, and some food causes resentment. The girl takes a jar of jam in her hands and claims that she is going to show His Highness how emotions can be experienced through food. The servants don't know what she's talking about, and the lady with lavender hair asks to be allowed to prove that her ability is real and the girl is not a fraud at all. After that, she prepares her dish. The servants, looking at it, claim that it looks like it's straight from hell. The knight asks her ladyship what the ghastly mixture is. Rose asks what he's talking about, since she made it especially for His Highness. The brunette shouts that it's not food and warns the prince that Lady Karnaeff definitely has a grudge against the imperial family and is probably trying to poison him. But the girl asks how he can say such cruel words, since he saw her cooking herself. The young lady then asks the chef if she added anything inedible, and the cook claims that she did nothing of the sort. But he tells His Highness that from what he saw in the cooking process, if it was eaten, he might get sick. The protagonist argues that the dish is not tainted and offers to at least taste it first. The brunette yells how dare Lady Karnaeff and claims that she has been arrested on suspicion of poisoning. The girl sighs and says it's upsetting. The protagonist, however, takes a spoon and tastes the dishes prepared by the young lady. All the servants are shocked, and the knight almost faints from what he sees. After the tasting, Enoch tells Sir Roner to immediately arrest Lady Karnaeff for attempting to kill a member of the imperial family. The brunette already turns around and glares fiercely at the lavender-haired lady, but she shrieks for them to wait. The girl calmly asks if they have forgotten what purpose this dish is for. But Enoch says that if the girl wanted to plunge him into eternal slumber, he'd say that the one almost made it. The protagonist claims it is a dish of indignation. His Highness repeats the name in surprise, and Rose says that this is a food that eating it would make him angry, for even a saint would burst from such a meal. The knight asks why the girl prepared this dish of indignation. The The protagonist replies that it is all for the sake of emotion, because indignation is also an emotion. The girl looks at the crown prince and asks if he felt something when he ate it. The same man claims he doesn't know if it was indignation, but thinks he's lost his sense of taste. The lavender-haired lady states that it seems His Highness tends to exaggerate a bit. She then turns to the chef and asks if he could prepare something simple of what His Highness likes best. The chef sinks into his thoughts for a moment and thinks about what the crown prince might like. After that, the man pulls a cap over his head and asks him to wait for a while. The servants claim that, as expected from the chef, there is nothing in common with that infernal dish. When everything is ready, the chef asks to taste the dish. They are fresh sun sandwiches filled with arugula and cheese, bruschetta with shrimp and veal steak with added sourness in the form of warmed red wine. The lavender-haired lady suggests His Highness try them one at a time this time. The fellow brings the appetizer to his mouth and then does the same with the other dishes. A few minutes later, His Highness's plates glow with frequency. Enoch approaches the chef and states that it was delicious. The servant is very touched by this. The protagonist says that His Highness is more pleased with the food prepared by the chef than the chaos of foodstuffs created by the girl. The blonde man claims that he now understands why people eat delicious food. He didn't even know that he liked this kind of food, but now he definitely realized that all 3 dishes were enjoyable to eat. The chef claims to be very touched. You can tell at a glance how difficult it was to please Enoch's palate. Empress Caroline always kept a particularly close eye on the emotionless prince and often replaced his servants if the prince's reactions were even slightly different from usual. Reading the book, Rose could only feel Empress Caroline's experiences. Now, however, she realizes what a stifling environment the servants work in, and it must have been difficult for the chief. The protagonist asks the crown prince if the sensations of her food and the chief's food are any different. The guy claims that when he ate that strange soup, he felt like he was going to vomit from the poisoning and it made his face crinkle in on itself. And when he ate the food the chef made, he realized that he actually liked the sour taste. Chef claims that this is the case because usually most of the plates of food that had a refreshing and clean flavor were empty. The protagonist says that after the delicious meal, although he was unhappy because of Lady Carniff, his mood improved. The servants are shocked because His Majesty just said to be displeased, and on top of that, he said his mood has improved. They shriek that the words about cooking, which can make a man angry, were true. The lady with the lavender hair asks if His Highness will now believe that she is an expert on emotions. The guy says he still doubts it, but admits that he has never experienced these feelings before. After all this, the young lady heads through the garden. She thinks she's done it after all, but her mood is ruined because after all this, Enoch just took off. Suddenly, the girl hears someone running towards her. She turns around and sees the chef there. The servant bows to the young lady and thanks her. Rose is shocked and asks what for, and he says that he heard that thanks to her special power, His Highness can feel emotions, and the young lady wanted to teach him the feeling of happiness through food. And the cook can't hold back tears and confesses that this is the first time in his life that he has seen the prince like this. After that, the man holds out a pouch to the lavender-haired lady. He states that although not everyone will be able to believe in her power right away, he would like to express his gratitude as her ladyship saved his family. The man also wishes the young lady good luck and says that very soon many people will not doubt her abilities. The girl did not expect gratitude, and yet it is pleasant. The next day, the main character receives a maid. She informs her that breakfast has arrived, and the chef personally prepared these dishes as a token of his heartfelt gratitude. Rose is very happy about this, and the woman claims that she heard that the young lady was being hounded by reporters, as well as rumors that His Highness can feel emotions with her special abilities. The protagonist says this is true, and the maid claims that her ladyship must see that article. Rose looks at the paper and sees that it says a lady who melted an icy heart and a secret rendezvous in a deserted winter hall. The woman says there are 3 times as many reporters gathered outside as yesterday, and today the girls had better not go outside the palace. The lavender-haired lady, on the other hand, thinks the photo came out well. One of the maids reports that Duke Karnef has arrived and asks what to do. The protagonist realizes that he was bound to arrive at some point, and the guy breaks into the room. He is breathing heavily because he was in a great hurry to his little sister. The protagonist only waves at him, but the guy runs up to her and asks what's going on, and also why Rose suddenly ran away from home and saved His Majesty's life, and now she's also in love with the Crown Prince. He asks if his little sister knows how surprised he was lucky to have left a petition to enter the palace in advance. The lavender-haired lady claims it was just a minor mishap during a product demonstration. The young man asks what kind of strange things Rosa is saying and if she realizes how serious it is, because the next step after the engagement is the wedding. The protagonist calmly says that she planned it that way. Reyes in no way expected such an answer. He asks how the girl could do this. I told his brother not a word. But she only asks if she has to marry someone anyway. Is the richest of the rich, His Highness the Prince, the best option for me? She holds out a bag of money to her brother and tells him to take this with him. Guy has to buy everything he needs, and don't forget the checks. The guy strokes his little sister's head and asks when she grew up so much. He feels that the girl has changed a lot since the day she got seriously ill. The young lady realizes that Reyes, it turns out, isn't exactly a fool. Serena enters the room and says she wanted to see if Reyes would mind. But her eyes fall on the guy with the lavender hair. Reyes says the lady in front of him must be Viscountess Plone. The girl says her name is Serena Plon. The protagonist's brother introduces himself as well. When the red-haired lady learns that the young man is Reyes' brother, she claims that she knew it because the two of them look so much alike that she recognized the Duke at first sight. Reyes assures that he was often told about his similarity to Rose, but the protagonist is not very flattered by these words. She recalls that in the novel, the guy fell in love with Serena at first sight, but it doesn't seem, and that now he feels the same way. The maid apologizes for interrupting their conversation, but Her Majesty the Empress wishes to meet Lady Karnef in person and has been commanded to report to the Empress as soon as the girl is ready. Rose realizes that it is time for an engagement talk, one-on-one with the Empress. The red-haired lady says that she will then go practice before the award ceremony. Reyes grabs her sister's hand and says that the fact that Her Majesty is calling her now must have something to do with her and the prince discussing her marriage. The young man argues that even if an article in this appeared in the daily newspaper, if his little sister doesn't want it, she can always refuse. The girl realizes that there is a point to it. If there is someone openly claiming to be able to make the prince feel emotions, the Empress will not stand by. Rose puts her hand on her brother's shoulder and tells him not to worry, because this is what will make her happy. After that, the protagonist goes to the Empress. She is sure that Her Highness is going to tie her hands by any means. In such a case, the girl has nothing left but to use this in her favor. She enters the woman's room and greets Her Imperial Majesty Empress Caroline. The blonde tells the girl to raise her head and claims that she heard something incredible, so she asks if the young lady can really make the prince feel emotions. The protagonist claims that she does. Her Highness says that the creature she was looking for so much was right under her nose. She recently invited Duke Karnef there to discuss Rosalia's engagement to the prince. Caroline says that Duke Karnef is indeed a cordial and honest man, for he said he would only accept the marriage proposal if he received his sister's consent. The Empress says that this is a strange case, because in addition to the lady, she had someone else in mind. Well, since the girl has such power, who cannot miss it? Blondie asks Lady Rosalia Karnef what she can do to get her heart. The protagonist realizes that she has finally waited for the Empress to propose, but she must hold on until the woman makes her offer. So Rose asks how on earth she can ask something of Her Majesty. Caroline says the lady with the lavender hair was more interesting than she thought, and the girl claims that Her Highness the Empress is overpraising her. The blonde says that the young lady is very brave, and she finds it simply incredible that in places she and her brother are simply indistinguishable. Rose would like to refuse such a compliment. Caroline continues her speech and says that she knows about the debts of the Karnef family. Therefore, she will pay them all off and forever exempt the Denbridge estate from paying taxes. In addition, As a token of their sincerity in the matter of marriage, they will receive 1 4-wheeled carriage, 4 horses, and 1,000 gold coins of Terra. The lavender-haired lady realizes that this is almost the value of the Lord's castle and his holdings. If it were the wedding dowry of an ordinary family, it would barely be enough for a garage, but they are dealing with an empress, in whose mind it is almost no money. The girl calculates everything in her head and realizes that it is possible to ask for more. When Caroline sees that the girl is silent, she says that to maintain her dignity as a bride, the young lady will be sent 10 sets of dresses and jewelry. Rose says she is most grateful for Her Highness's boundless favor. She realizes that this is only the first time, so that's enough for now, as this is only the beginning. Then the Empress says that she thinks they are done with this engagement. The protagonist bows and says she has to say something to Her Highness before agreeing. The woman, already with a quill in her hand, tells the girl to speak. The young lady says that she understands the significance of His Highness's lack of emotion for the succession to the throne and is well aware that the press and the Vatican have been very persistent in digging up this issue, which you are pleasing to His Highness. Rose assures him that if in the future she has to confront them and do what is right, she swears she will put her all into it. The blonde smiles. She says she thought of the girl as brave, but she turns out to be smart as well. The Empress signs the document and says that after what she has seen, she tends to believe that the prince does need the lady's help to feel emotions. But along with that, it is important to let everyone know that he is indeed capable of feeling. That's where Roselia Carneff's role comes in. Her Highness finishes signing the document, after which she asks the young lady to take care of the prince. After that, the protagonist steps down the corridor. She sees the servants noshing around the hall and thinks how noisy it is. The maid offers the lavender-haired lady to rehearse before the awards ceremony in the East Wing, and the protagonist is happy because she doesn't see any journalists around. The lady with red hair approaches Rose and is greeted. The protagonist asks if the rehearsal is going well. Serena replies that it is, and when His Majesty calls, they should step forward to the platform and wait. The Crown Prince enters the room. The ladies start whispering about his beauty. Rose wonders why the main character is here again. Besides, Serena is the main character in the novel, and if she meets him, Rose will lose all her money. She doesn't understand what to do, but she thinks that if she feels a hint of something strange, she can try to escape with him somehow. But the prince approaches the lady with lavender hair. The two girls immediately greet His Highness, and the one states that he has something to talk to Rosalia about, so he would like to go somewhere else. The other ladies immediately start whispering why the prince is with this girl, because she doesn't even look like an aristocrat and walks around with that red-haired girl all the time. The protagonist hears everything. She realizes that despite his bad reputation, Enoch is very popular. It's probably because of his face. Serena states that she has to finish preparing for the ceremony, so if they have something to share, they can talk quietly. Rose turns to Sir Roner and says it would be just fine if he escorted Lady Serena. The knight can't refuse. After they leave, the prince suggests that the lavender-haired lady go to the East Wing. The protagonist doesn't understand what the hell he's thinking, but heads after him as they walk outside. The blonde claims to have heard about her conversation with the Empress. He turns around and asks if the girl really wants to marry him. Rose, with a smile on her face, states that she does. The prince, on the other hand, does not understand her intentions and asks why. Of course, the young lady is doing it because of money, but she can't tell such truth. So she claims that it will probably be misunderstood, so we can say that it is because she had no intention of refusing the proposal. Enoch doesn't want to beat around the bush asking what this intention means, but suddenly says to wait. He realizes that there are plenty of reporters around, so suggests the young lady go to the West Wing. But the guys don't give up. One of the reporters jumps up from his seat and asks them to wait. His Highness realizes that nothing can be done, so he grabs the protagonist in his arms and runs away. After they set foot on the grounds of the West Wing, the blonde man claims that now they have arrived and the young lady can speak. The girl asks if there's any reason to avoid the reporters as much as possible, since they seem even more suspicious that way. But His Highness says that avoid them or not, the result is the same. So for the sake of time, it would be better to avoid them. He then asks what the answer is. Rose says that if he is going to marry anyway, isn't it better to choose the most suitable party for himself? Enoch then asks if the girl wants to become an empress, but the girl says that being an empress is not that attractive. But above all, if she is around, people will consider His Highness more human. Guy isn't sure why this should be a good thing, since up until this point he has handled his own affairs properly and doesn't need to win feelings. If it's a political issue, he has enough arguments in the form of force, and all of these are just hindrances, because things like emotions don't convince people. In that case, the girl asks why Her Majesty didn't stop searching for the shard of His Highness's soul. Enoch doesn't know what to answer. And the girl asks if His Highness thinks the emotions he experienced recently when he ate are unimportant, and if he wants, they can repeat. The blonde approaches Rose and asks if she is going to fall on him again like that time. The young lady asks him not to twist people's words like that, and the crown prince asks if the assertion of assassination and fraud is a twisting of words. The young lady asks if she put poison in her food, and His Highness tastes everything. Suddenly, from behind them, someone shrieks that it's a guy doing this. It's Duke Carnef. He asks what the stranger is trying to do to Rose, because he was in a fit of rage and didn't realize it was His Highness.